You ever had the kind of morning where the smell of jet ski exhaust mixes with cheap legal threats and way too expensive perfume, and you just know your day's about to go off the rails? Yeah, that's where this started, right in my own driveway. Serafina Blackthorn screaming at me, manicured finger jabbing at the private pier I'd bought 72 hours earlier like I'd somehow stolen it from her royal treasury. Behind her, her grandson's doing backflips off that very pier on a jet ski, leaving a trail of beer cans and entitlement, and she's calling it a community safety hazard. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a butter knife. She shoved the stack of legal documents in my face, sun glinting off a diamond tennis bracelet so garish it looked rented, barking that my property was actually community property and I had 24 hours to hand it over to the HOA. What she didn't know, what nobody there knew, was I was recording everything on 3 different devices, and the father she thought had abandoned me. Yeah, he's Malcolm Rhodes, sitting governor of Michigan watching live from his office and probably already planning how to drop the hammer. And let me back up a sec because this all unraveled fast. Her precious grandson Preston out there training for nationals using my dangerous pier every afternoon, trashing it while Serafina skimmed $500 a month from 73 households for pier maintenance that never happened. Meanwhile, her family treated the supposedly dangerous piers like their private yacht club. In about 47 minutes, FBI agents would storm the community center and slap cuffs on Serafina, her judge husband, and half the HOA board. But nobody knew that, yet not Preston, who'd soon realize his entire college fund was built on stolen HOA dues. Not the neighbors, who thought their money went to repairs, instead of funding marina empires, not even Serafina herself, who genuinely believed she was untouchable. So, what would you do if someone claimed your private property was now community property while their family trashed it for free? Me, I'm not one to roll over, and if you're still listening, smash that like button for anybody willing to fight back when the system's rigged. Trust me, what Serafina did next would make your blood boil. But that ending, man, you'll want to stick around for that. Let's rewind 3 days when my only plan was to unpack, stay invisible, and maybe finally get some sleep. I was standing in front of a plain old 2-story house on Lake Michigan Cedar, siding peeling roof, a few years shy of an emergency windows drafty as my last apartment. I didn't choose this place for the water views or even that 60-foot pier, though it was a thing of beauty. Pressure-treated lumber deep water access could dock a 40-foot boat easy. I picked it because it was the farthest I could get from my old life in Philly, where witness protection meant more near misses than I'll ever admit. My U.S. Marshal handler Janet swore the place was clean, previous owner dead no heirs, government acquired. But she forgot to mention Serafina Blackthorn, the self-appointed HOA queen who'd been trying to snatch this very property for 5 years to finish her illegal marina. No sooner had I stacked my last moving box than I heard the crunch of a Range Rover on my gravel. Out steps Serafina at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday, in a blinding pink tennis outfit, hair chopped in that aggressive bob. Every HOA president seems to have 2 nervous board members trailing behind her like mall cops. She barely looked at me, just long enough to size me up as an easy mark, eyes flicking to my clothes, the exhaustion in my face, and you could practically see her filing me under pushover. "Mr. Rhodes, is it?" Like it was a question. We weren't informed of new residents. I said federal sale, quick closing, and saw her flinch, just a crack at the word federal. She puffed herself up and marched right into my house without even asking. Her board dogs followed, and suddenly I'm standing in my own kitchen watching her spread out paperwork with all the casual menace of someone who's done this before. "These documents," she said, pointing at my pier through the window, "show it's community property. You'll need to sign it over in 48 hours. The papers looked official. Sure, letterhead stamps, legalese, but I've seen better fakes from small-time hustlers, and these scream fraud. I said I just bought this. The deed says the pier's mine." She let out a laugh, sharp enough to peel paint. "Federal purchases don't supersede local HOA regulations." She leaned in, voice sweet as poison. The previous owner simply refused to acknowledge it, which is why we had to take certain actions. That threat hung in the air like cheap perfume. That's when I realized this is how she's driven off every past owner. I told her I'd review the docs with my attorney. Bad move, apparently. She dropped the act, stared me down. I don't think you understand how things work. My husband's a judge. My brother's the sheriff. The mayor owes me a dozen favors. Sign the papers or life here gets unpleasant. Her board members twitched but said nothing. I stood my ground, told her she had 48 hours to cough up real documents, then asked her to leave. She stormed out snapping, "Ask the Naguayans what happened to them." "Oh wait, you can't. They moved after their house failed 6 straight inspections." On her way out, she snapped pictures of my place, already plotting her war. As soon as their Range Rover left, I did what I do best, followed the money. Inside an hour, I'd mapped out the whole racket, $500 per house, 73 homes, $36, $500 a month, $438,000 a year, nearly $2.2 million over 5 years. Actual maintenance, less than $50,000. The rest funneled through shell companies to Blackthorn Marine Development LLC. Their scam forced people to sign over piers through harassment, launder the money, and build a private marina. That afternoon, as I documented their crimes, I heard jet skis looked out, and sure enough, Preston and his friends were using my pier as their playground. Beer cans everywhere, boards, splintered fuel slicks on the water. I filmed it all, every jump, every bit of trash, every cracked board, knowing this was gold for evidence. That night my phone buzzed. "Son, is everything okay? Saw some concerning posts." That's my dad, the governor. World thinks he abandoned me. Truth is he's been watching over me since my FBI undercover days. I texted, handling it. Local HOA president trying to steal my pier. Don't intervene yet. He's not the type to sit on his hands, but I wanted to do this my way. Next morning, 3 violation notices on my door. Pier height, non-compliant, $500. Unauthorized kayak storage, $750. Disturbing marine ecosystem, $1,000. Failure to register, $1. $500. All fake, all predated her visit. I photographed them and went to visit my neighbor Dorothy Waverly, sweet old lady who'd clearly seen too much. When I introduced myself, she just shook her head. "Oh, you poor dear. Serafina always goes after the waterfront. Her house was full of old photos, happy families now mostly gone." She handed me a box of documents. "You're the 4th federal resident she's targeted. Stories of families bullied out, property seized, piers turned to community assets, meaning Blackthorn assets." But what makes me mad? Dorothy's hand shook with rage. "She charges us, but look at the public docs." I peeked out the window. Public doc looked like it had rot through by next spring. "Where's the money?" I asked, though I knew. In her pocket, Dorothy snapped. "Nobody can prove it." I told her I can, and for the first time I saw hope in her eyes. She handed over more files. Every threat, every trumped-up violation, every fake inspection, all kept by families who'd left in defeat. I spent hours with her building a timeline, a roadmap to nail Serafina for good. That afternoon, a county inspector showed up. Guy looked exhausted. "Between you and me," he muttered, "I've been sent here 6 times in 5 years for the same complaint, always after someone won't sign over the pier." "Lawyer up." I smiled, already done. My witness protection program came with some perks like access to federal prosecutors. That night, someone loosened the lug nuts on my car. Not enough to kill me, just enough to scare. I reported it knowing it'd go nowhere with the sheriff on Serafina's payroll and installed security cameras everywhere. The next day, Preston and the jet ski crew returned 18 Serafina herself, recording like it was the Olympics. I called 911, got the runaround Marine Patrol unavailable, so I went live 3 platforms at once, narrating the whole circus. Within minutes, thousands watched Preston destroy my pier under Grandma's supervision. Comments blew up. People tagged news outlets, environmental agencies, the governor's office. Serafina realized she was being streamed and lost it, shouting at me to turn it off, claiming privacy violations while her grandson trashed my property. I told her everything's legal and all going to evidence. Preston panicked, jet skied ashore, and Serafina tried to shut it down, but it was too late. Screenshots, video, everything archived. If you found your HOA president stealing millions and letting her family destroy your property, would you quietly sue or go nuclear? I want to know. Drop your answer in the comments. That night, an emergency HOA meeting notice landed in my inbox. Pier confiscation on the agenda. Failure to attend equals automatic forfeiture. Scheduled right at dinner time, stacked with her cronies. But I'd spent the last 3 days prepping. Compiled evidence, called my U.S. Marshal handler, got backup, texted my dad. Tomorrow 7 p.m. Watch the live stream. It's time. He replied, understood. Assets in position. No clue what that meant, but Malcolm Rhodes never wasted words. Next morning, I got a cease and desist from Serafina's husband's law firm claiming I owed $500,000 in damages for emotional distress. I added it to the evidence pile unbothered. I'd gone up against cartels. Angry HOA presidents didn't scare me. I spent the afternoon contacting everyone she'd wronged. Most agreed to call into the meeting and share their stories. As I left, I found a handwritten note, last chance sign over the pier, or tonight's the beginning of the end for you in Pinarest County. I smiled. She was right, just not in the way she thought. That night, the community center was packed. Serafina's family at the head table, matching blazers, crowds stacked with supporters. Preston still in wetsuit, smirking with his jet ski crew. Serafina kicked things off with a PowerPoint blood-red text warning about unregulated piers, photoshopped disasters, claims I'd endangered the community. She accused me of live streaming children, painted me as a predator. The crowd gasped on cue. She moved to confiscate my pier. The board voted instantly, motion carried. I stood up. Before we finish, everyone needs to see this. Plugged in my phone, Preston and his crew trashing the pier while Serafina cheered, timestamp visible. More videos, more evidence. The room went silent. Then the financials on $2.2 million collected, $47,000 spent, rest funneled to Blackthorn Marine. Residents did the math, realizing how much they'd been robbed. Serafina shrieked it was all taken out of context. I dropped the final bomb, a 1952 document granting my pier federal protection, immune to HOA seizure. Her vote meant nothing. Chaos. Residents yelling, board members panicking. Serafina tried to adjourn, but the doors opened. 6 Michigan State police officers and my dad, Governor Rhodes, in the flesh. Serafina nearly fainted. Malcolm addressed the room, systematic fraud, corruption, and threats against a federal witness. FBI followed, handcuffs for Serafina, her judge husband, the board. The crowd erupted, decades of abuse finally ending. Mrs. Waverly stood trembling, finger pointed, "You stole from us." Others joined, stories pouring out. Agent Chen from the FBI announced they'd uncovered $8.7 million stolen across counties. My pier was safe. All illegal seizures would be reversed. The Blackthorn is once untouchable, now headed for prison. In the aftermath, the state appointed a new administrator, Patricia Kim, who posted all records online, made meetings. Public returned $31,000 to every family. Neighbors paid off debts, fixed homes, even bought back lost boats. 3 months later, Preston knocked on my door, humbler, wanting to teach jet skiing to local kids for free with donated gear. I agreed with conditions. Mrs. Waverly ran the program. The kid who'd trashed my pier found purpose in giving back. 6 months out, we held the first annual Pinarest Freedom Festival. Neighbors who'd moved away came back. Laughter replaced suspicion. The pier became a symbol not just of victory, but of what a real community could be. My dad, no longer governor, bought the house next door. Every Sunday we fish, make up for lost years, and trade stories. Sometimes justice isn't just punishment. It's giving a community back what was stolen and helping the next generation do better. The pier stands strong, not as Serafina's trophy, but as proof that one person or a handful of people standing together can take down an empire built on fear and greed. And if you ever find yourself the target of a bully with a fake legal pad and too much perfume, don't back down. Fight back. And don't forget, real justice always leaves a little room for redemption. If you've ever faced off against a corrupt HOA, or just stood up when everyone else was ready to give in, tell me, would you have done things differently? Do you believe people like Preston can change, or are some legacies too rotten to redeem? Drop your stories in the comments. And remember, even when you're supposed to be hiding sometimes, standing up is the only way to protect what matters.